To be the first. I don't really know like how to intro this. Hey guys, it's Shan the podcast. You know what I mean? But like, yeah.
Welcome back to Shannon the doula.
Oh
I'm
man.
gonna have to practice my radio voice.
Oh god.
Every time I listen to radio, I'm like, yo, I could totally be a radio personality for sure. Because of the way I talk, like I have so much animation in my voice. For sure, I have a lot of opinions.
I've been told to do like voice acting and stuff, but I don't know. I don't know if I could, do those.
Once you get in the zone, you're just in it.
If I could do voice acting as just like myself, I could do it. But then like, then you start reading a script and you're like, oh, hello there. And you don't sound natural like yourself anymore. It sounds dumb. Alright, so it seems to be recording, okay? So let's just start this off. Welcome to the first story out of 5 that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. Birth stories. I guess technically out of 6 because I'm going to be telling mine too. But anyways, yeah, so introduce yourself.
Oh, now? Okay. My name is Brittany. I have 2 kids, boy and a girl. Very different birth stories. Excited to share my experience. So,
are you okay with like telling them your age?
Oh, 29. I have my son at 25 and my daughter at 27.
Whoa, that's crazy. You had Johnny at 25. That's so crazy. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to say his name? Is that okay? I don't know if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Alright, so let's start this off. I have a few questions I wrote down, just as like a guideline to help us get started with this conversation. Okay, so how did you find out you were pregnant? With Johnny.
With my son, I missed my period. That's literally the first thing that kind of caught my attention. I was like, normally I have like a period that's like, 26 days max in the cycle. 26 days came when I'm like, all right, well, whatever, normally it's 28, so let me wait. Oh, wait, 28 came when? I'm like, well, went on Google, I was like, it could be up to 35 days, so let's just wait. And I waited, and 35 days came and went, and I was like, okay, I guess I should go and buy that test now. So then I did, and I peed on a stick, and I found out I was pregnant. I was like, oh, snap. Divine timing.
Oh, man. And I remember how I found out, like, I think you were in your room doing your makeup, and you were on the phone with your man, and he said something about, like, Brittany's pregnant. And I started laughing because I'm like, oh, you guys are so stupid.
Yeah.
And then I saw your face. And you were like kind of looking at me and you're like, oh shit. And I was like, I'm going to meet you downstairs.
Yeah,
I'll talk to you when you're ready.
Because I was sitting there like, yo, did this guy even like consider like I wasn't going to tell anybody yet? What the hell? But then like 2 weeks later, I think we were at mom's house and I was just like, yeah, I got to go throw up. And mom was like, oh my god, is she like sick? Oh my god, what's happening? And I just came up and like,
yeah. We were sitting in mom's hallway with Isaac after his 2-month shots. And he was like whining and we were all like, oh my god, poor baby. And then all of a sudden you just got up and ran into the bathroom and mom looks at me and she's like, what's wrong with her? I'm like, I don't know. I think maybe she has the flu. I don't really know.
You do that, I don't know, all the time. That's her. I'm lying. I don't know.
And she was like, oh, the flu. And then you came out of the bathroom and you're like, I'm pregnant. And she's like, what the fuck?
I was like, that's a great thing to hear your mom say when you tell her that you're pregnant.
Oh my god.
I think she wasn't planning on being a nana again.
I know. She's like, I only have a 2-month-old grandson already. And now, what is it? It's been one every year?
Yeah.
Since Isaac.
We haven't, I think.
We don't have a 2019.
No, 2018.
2018 we don't have.
Because what, Jacob was.
You're right.
2017, no?
Oh man, so 2018 just kind of stopped everything in its tracks. That's crazy.
Wait on the next wave.
Oh man, and then it'll be like 10 more. It's crazy. Okay, so, how did you feel about your pregnancy? Like when you first got pregnant?
Well, for me, like when I first got pregnant with my son, I was like, oh snap, because obviously the situation wasn't the most ideal. It wasn't your fairy tale picture of how you get pregnant or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I knew instantly, like there was no other option. Like that's my baby, and me and him are going to the end of the world. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I was a little bit scared. I was kind of like, do I have anything in place that I can support this baby with? But at that time in my life, I was kind of like doing a lot of shift work, and I was a casual worker, so like although I had lots of shifts, I was doing all sorts of shifts, overnight, daytime, evening time, and I was just nonstop going. So it was really stressful, but I felt pretty good. Like, I love being pregnant. I love being pregnant. Although, like, unfortunately for my pregnancies, I get that thing, I don't know how to say it, hypermesiocardium. I don't know. I don't know. HG. That's what I call it. I've tried to say it so many different ways. I'm like, maybe it's this way, maybe it's that way. The one where you throw up basically all the time, no matter what.
You have to take the prescription medication, yeah.
And that medication did work for me. Maybe it was a pseudo effect because I've heard things about it that it doesn't really help, but it helped me, and that's the only way I was able to eat. I was in hospital with my son at 16 weeks because I was so dehydrated because I couldn't even keep down water. Because I tried to stop the medication because I was like, okay, I don't want to take medication when I'm pregnant, right? And then I was like, well, I ran out, so let me just think. If I can go without it. And literally, I think I made it like less than 4 hours, and I was like dead. I was like, bleh. So I was just throwing up, couldn't keep down water, so I had to go to the hospital. And then after that, I got the meds back, and I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. Even with the meds, though, I couldn't really tolerate much of anything. And it wasn't until after 6 months with my son that I started to be able to eat like regular foods, like pizza, for example. But even so, my heartburn was and acid reflux and whatever was so bad that like it doesn't matter what I ate, it always just came back up if it didn't sit right in my stomach. So I couldn't take Materna. I had to buy the special gummy pills.
I remember the hunt for those.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't do nothing.
Wait, Mom ended up ordering them on Amazon, right? Because you couldn't find them, and now they're everywhere.
Yeah,
the gummy.
I started a trend. You see that?
Materna stuff.
Just kidding. Yeah. But yeah, and so yeah, it was okay. Like I really loved the belly and the feeling the kicks, and my son was active as hell. So like my stomach used to do some really weird things. But it's nice, just being there with another person that's part of you, and they don't talk too much, and you can just sit there and talk to them.
Yeah.
And definitely a huge piece of that, connecting to your kids when you're pregnant and they're moving and they're growing and you see their belly grow, take those belly pics. Mm-hmm. Such a special time. So yeah. Should I talk about Rose too?
Yeah. Let me know how you felt about.
So with Rose, when did I find out I was pregnant? Oh, Rose was just like, okay, 28 days came and went, and then I was like, all right, I must be. Like, yeah, because usually I'm about 26, so I was like, no, I'm pregnant. And I went and took the test right away, and I was just like, and that was it. At that point, like, we had a little bit more things put together, so it wasn't as nerve-wracking, but her pregnancy was a lot easier. I was still sick, but I was mostly... And that pregnancy was the same. Obviously, I also had, like, a toddler at that time, too, so it was a lot more difficult and a lot less time of bonding before she came out and stuff like that. So I feel maybe me and my son have a different connection than me and my daughter in terms of, like, just that emotional connection. He's much more attached to me than she is, but also it comes from she got a lot less attention than he did in the first, like, 18 months of his life, right? Because it was only him. But, yeah. So those pregnancies, both of them, I love being pregnant both times. But since then, I have lost good control over my bladder, unfortunately. Not sure if it has to do with the deliveries or whatnot, but...
I was just talking about that today with...
I can't jump on a trampoline.
Yeah,
my pants,
exactly.
Basically.
I was talking about that at work. We were talking about, like, going to Sky Zone or something together as, like, a work group. And then, like, all of the moms were like, no, let's not do that. And, like, the other people were like, what? Why?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, after you have a baby, you don't really have that great control over your bladder anymore.
Okay, good. So I'm not the only one.
You jump up and down a couple times and you're like, oh, I have to go pee.
Yeah. No, I couldn't believe it. Like, what was it? It was it might have been my son, like John's. It might have been his birthday party or something.
Yeah.
And I was literally starting to jump on the trampoline. I was like, yeah, wee. And then I'm like I just stopped. And I was like, did I just pee myself? Like, I didn't even feel it trying to come out. Like, I wasn't like, I peed. Like, it just literally went like, whoop, I'm going to leak out little bit by little bit. And I was just like, I need to stop or I'm going to have to change my underwear. Like, what the frick? I was like, wow. So I was really upset because, like, your childhood happiness of jumping on a trampoline, you can no longer enjoy without some Depends. Next time, all the moms should go together and wear Depends and jump as much as they desire.
Seriously. Oh, my God. And then, like, laughing really hard and, like, just so many
for me, it's like if I ever get sick and I throw up, I'm pissing myself, too. Like, when I was pregnant, I used to do the same thing, which was like, okay, that's normal. But now afterwards, like, if I get sick, like, say I get the flu or a stomach virus or something, if I throw up, I'm either going to pee on the floor because I'm throwing up in the toilet or have to sit on the toilet and throw up into like garbage or something.
Oh, my God.
Because as I'm throwing up, I'm peeing also. Like, and sometimes a full bladder, so it's just like a full, like, if it was on the floor, it'd be a huge puddle. And I did that at work once. I was pregnant at that time though, and I had to throw up, and I went outside. I'm like, I need help. I peed myself. Like, I couldn't help it.
So crazy. Wow. Okay, so who did you tell first about your pregnancy with Johnny, and who did you tell first about your pregnancy with Rose?
Both times was their dad. I told him right away. I think the second person for John was Sparkle. Mm-hmm. My best friend. I told her, pretty much like right after but I waited to tell people because I was like, you know what, I'm already kind of anticipating what people's feedback would be, and I'm like, I don't know how many people are going to be that excited. So, Sparkle, and then it was you. Yeah. With Rose.
Well, I'm just finding out today that I was the third person that you told, so that's great.
I wasn't going to tell anybody for a long time until he opened his big ass mouth. And then with Rose, it was him, and then I think he called his mom right after, and I was like, can you give me like a week or something? Like,
to just like process
own it. Yeah. And, like, this is mine to know. But no, he's called like everybody, like, his mom, his sisters, and said it, and was like, number 2, and I was just like, it's not like a competition.
Number 2.
Jeez.
Oh, man.
And then since then we've halted.
Yeah.
So, sorry. As a mom, you don't get normal sleep, so you're tired at all hours of the day, no matter what time it is.
I can attest to that. Okay, what kind of support did you have, especially for your first pregnancy? What do you feel? Do you feel like you had less support than you thought or more support than you thought?
For my first pregnancy, I feel like I had exactly what I thought I would have is what I had, but like in the eyes of like pregnancies that are very much supported and ones that are not, I was on the lower end. Okay. Like, I feel like because it was spontaneous, people weren't expecting it, I think there was a lot less preparation to be supportive of that. And then also not a lot of people, it's not like I have a lot of people in my life, but the people that were in my life, like family and friends and whatnot, were kind of like, this is not the right time for you. Like, like they felt like kind of a way about it. And so I think that there was a lack of support there. But at the same time, I'm not really like, I don't really go out of my way asking people for support. Yeah. So I kind of just like did it on my own anyways. But their dad was, he had his bumps along the way. But in terms of being supportive of the pregnancy, like, I could snap my fingers and it would be done. Yeah, definitely. But,
oh my God, I remember, because Isaac was, like, fresh when you were pregnant with Johnny. And I remember he went grocery shopping for you. And oh my God, I walked into the kitchen one day, and this is when I was breastfeeding, so I was always hungry.
Yeah.
And there was just groceries everywhere, and I was like, "Is this heaven? Like, did I die and go to heaven?"
Like, he came and with like a carload of
and
juice boxes.
I think it was just because you said like, "Oh, you were a little bit hungry or something." And
I was like, "Well, I need snacks," because I used to get hungry in the middle of the night. So 3 a.m. I was like up in the kitchen, starving. It was my first pregnancy, so. I was like, I just need snacks for nighttime. He came in, he had like every granola bar possible. He had Half Moons, he had Joe Louis, he had this, he had that. And then the funny thing is, I didn't crave any of that stuff, and I was actually resistant to that stuff. Most of that stuff expired. Yeah. Like, I didn't get to it.
Except
I didn't
for the
eat
juice
it.
Boxes. I got through most of them.
No, seriously. Like, I was not, like, I couldn't keep down much. Sorry. Oh my God. This is like, what is it, like 8:30?
It's bedtime.
It's bedtime.
I know, it's a late night for me too. It's crazy.
Dear. So yeah, like I just didn't eat any of that stuff.
No, because living at mom's while pregnant was like going into the fridge and it was just pure disappointment. Yeah. Like, not because mom wasn't buying good groceries, but it was just like you'd go into the fridge and you'd be like, "That's not what I'm craving." Yeah. Like for me, at 3 a.m, if I wanted chicken wings, like I would just have to like sit there and imagine I was eating chicken wings and like eat like a stalk of celery or radishes. What else does mom have in her fridge? It's so random, like freaking sprouts or something. Like, oh, you can't even eat sprouts when you're pregnant. Don't eat sprouts when you're pregnant, guys. Don't do that.
I did not know that. Interesting. No, like he honestly, the kid's dad, like that's one thing that he used to get really frustrated me, especially in the beginning of both my pregnancies, because I was so not in the mood to eat. He used to be like, "What the frick?" Like, he knew, like, when his sisters were pregnant or whatever, they were always down to eat. At any time of day, any time of night, they were ready to order whatever. And so he just used to order food, and I'm just like, "But I don't want anything." And he used to get really upset, because he's like, "Well, are you supposed to eat? Are you supposed to eat?" Like, I'm like, "Yeah, but, like, I want strawberries." Like, go ahead, try. Like, so. Yeah, but in terms of, like, support and stuff like that, and, like, people, like, I think for the first 5 months of my pregnancy, I actually lived at Grandma Mary's house. Yeah. So I lived there, and I didn't tell her the whole time I was there. Like, I was like, nope, I'm ready to have that conversation. Yeah. And then I used to throw up a lot there, and I think she called mom. She was like, "What? Something's wrong with Brittany." Like, like, she's always like sick and that. And then finally, I still didn't tell her, and I was at like 5 months, and then I came home one day, and she's like, "Are you pregnant?" And I was just like, "Yeah." Like, I was like, I don't even know what else to say. Like, I was not, like, I didn't know how to approach the conversation. And then she kind of kicked me out, like, not in a bad way, but she's like, "I can't support, like, a baby living here." And I was just like, okay, good to know. Like, I was, that's why I wasn't really ready to have a conversation, because I didn't know what I was going to do at that point. And then once I told, my baby daddy that was happening, he was like, "Just come live with me." And I was just like, I don't really want to do that yet, but I could have had another choice, but, like, the more financially stable and sensible option was to go there, so I went there. Yeah. And I was there on weekends and, like, days off and stuff anyways, so it kind of was like a smooth transition, but yeah.
How was it, like, meeting his sisters and, like, his family and, like, telling them that you were pregnant?
Well, he did all of the telling them stuff, and then I've known him for, like,
it was 10 years at the time, I think, that you had known him?
Sorry. Since I was, like, 16, so I known him since then, and then I was 24 and I got pregnant. So they had seen me around, like, time to time when we were young. But for the most part, like, when you're a teenager, like, you're not chilling at home, right?
Yeah,
you're exactly. About doing stuff. So, they had seen me around, like, they were aware of, like, a white girl, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. But they didn't, know me. And then when I got there, they were kind of just, like, I guess they were looking at me like his, like, savior type of thing, like, I was gonna change his life type of thing, and they were hopeful, and so they really took me in very nicely. They were kind. And on top of that, too, like, I wasn't some ghetto girl that was, like, my baby daddy better pay up and like, you know, some of these girls are when they like love the baby mama drama.
Yeah.
So because I wasn't like that, and I did like I chose to be sensible and calm and whatnot. He really took to me. So the most important thing was his mom took to me, and we have a good relationship, and I think everybody follows suit after that. So.
Yeah, definitely. No, that family is very accepting. No matter what. They're very accepting and very supportive. Okay, let's see. Okay, what was your first appointment like? First doctor's appointment?
Okay, well, the first, like, doctor appointment was with Dr. B, and then she was just, like, she was shocked, obviously, like, she wasn't, she was like, oh, wow, like, oh, so then did the blood test, did the P test, she was like, yeah, you are, did the blood test, whatever.
Yeah, you really are.
Yeah, and then from there, she was gonna refer me to, Dr.
Dr. Ha?
Yeah, Dr. Ha.
Yeah.
And
Dr. Ma was for Laura. Okay, yeah. Dr. Ha. Shout out Dr. Ha. She was both of us. She was our obstetrician.
Yeah, she was very, very good, very nice. The appointments are so quick. You're kind of just like, oh, is there not like more? I should know. Like, oh my god, like I'm just supposed to be a parent, but you telling me that everything's okay. Like what? Like, are you supposed to tell me like that it's this many centimeters and like I have exactly this many days until they're coming? Like, I was kind of like, I need more information.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of worrisome because then you go and try and look online because it's just more accessible than going in books. And then you're just like, but I don't know how it gives you, like, you think, like, you're gonna die.
Yeah, all the time. You could just type in, like, something random about your pregnancy, and it's like, you're dying, or, like, your baby's in trouble, and it's, oh, my God, it's terrible.
Exactly. And so, like, I try, you know where really has, like, the most support in terms of community is Instagram, honestly. Like, I know Facebook does too, but Facebook's honestly too hard for me to navigate. Instagram is like, this is your account and this is what pictures you can talk about. So it's a lot more straightforward, and you find those communities where like people are talking about their everyday issues instead of like a blanket term, and then people like there's one explanation for it, right?
Yeah.
So I found that helpful. Also, it was super helpful, as you guys may have figured out by now, lovely Shannon is my sister. So having you was also, like, because you did a lot of, like, the research, and you also have your own, like, interest in it. So when it came to having questions or whatever, you're like, I'm going to look it up right now, and I'll tell you in, like, 5 seconds. And it's like, you're my personal Google, right? So it's just like, let me call up Shannon and ask her this or text her that. And so that was helpful. Just having somebody who's kind of like outside of the experience, but also there, like, with you every step of the way was very helpful in terms of like easing stress, anxiety, whatever, getting you answers faster. That makes sense, rather than like searching through Google and being like, I don't even know, I'm not reading the same thing I came on here for, and like, you know, like that kind of stuff.
It's very hard to navigate all that. There's so many different things that you have to click on. And,
exactly, and then you're like, you just end up looking at baby names. And you're like, well,
or you get really overwhelmed with information that you didn't want, and you're just like, I can't be on my phone for the next 10 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so were you ever uncomfortable talking to your doctor about anything that you had, like any concerns that you had?
I guess, like, because it's like, you know, your vagina, it's weird, like, regardless, because like, really, who else has been up in your vagina other than like the sexual partners you allow? So it's kind of like when you have that experience, like, okay, yeah, you've gone to the doctor, got a pap smear, like, that's one thing, but like, that's a little like swab and that's it, right? But when somebody's like really like human contact and like doing stuff, you're just kind of like, this is like the weirdest thing ever, because the only experience you really had with that before is like from desire, from like a sexual attraction, so, or trauma, like could be somebody's trauma, right? So it's a really weird experience. So I think that being comfortable in saying, like, I noticed this discharge or whatever, or I feel this way when I'm having sex, or that, like, those kind of things are strange to concepts to kind of get to for a woman that's like new to this.
Yeah.
Like if you're the type of woman that is really in tune with your femininity. Femininity. Like, I feel like Nemo. Anyways, sorry. Yeah, like if you're like not super in tune with that and like, you know, can express like, oh yeah, women's rights and blah blah blah, then I find that like talking about those kind of things is just difficult because like you're not used, society's not used to talking about those things outwardly.
Yeah.
And maybe in the last couple of years it's come out a lot more, like in terms of like breastfeeding, for example. People are talking about like why is that considered such a bad thing. But when it came to just asking those kind of intimate, personal questions, like I'd go in there with the intent like, yeah, I'm gonna ask. And then I get there, and then she'd be like, well, everything's fine. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and you
like,
just leave.
Bye. As long as it's all good for you. Like, you know, like, so, because it was kind of like, oh, I don't know. The appointments are really fast, too, right? So it's kind of like, you feel like if you ask questions or trying to get more information that you're taking up time and you're not allowed to take that up. I don't know. Doctors' offices are really impersonal.
Yeah.
Like they're not.
They make you feel like you have to get in and out as fast as possible.
Yeah, like they're not. It's rigid. It's not like I went when my best friend, when Laura was pregnant, with Tyler, and she had a midwife.
Yeah.
When I went to those appointments, they did so much more talking, so much more like, what is your experience, and like checking with mom and how she's feeling, and Whereas like in an obstetrician's office, they're like, oh yeah, so you weigh this much, and the heartbeat's fine, and you're doing great. Bye, see you in 4 weeks. Like you know what I mean? Like that's what it's like. So it's not really about your experience and how you feel and blah blah blah. So the like feeling like you can bring up something that's not like scheduled for, kind of feel like you can't do that. So
not to jump right into your actual births, because I don't want to get to them yet, but do you think that, like, speaking on that relationship that you have with your doctor, you feel like that experience in the doctor's office and stuff kind of plays a role into how we are in the actual, like, birthing room with them, and how, like, our birth actually kind of goes about, like, unfolding?
Well, I think that, like, especially, for example, my daughter, she was planned C-section, right? Whereas, like, so basically planning for her birth, it wasn't about my plans and what I wanted. Yeah. It was more about what days my doctor that I've been working with available. So I'm planning the life of my child to start based on some physician's schedule. Yeah. And it's kind of like, it takes away from, like, the like how special it is that like that event of bringing somebody to life, basically, right? And letting them breathe their first breath. So I think that like when it came to having doctor's appointments and leading up to the birth, that way, like going that route of having like a physician rather than like, you know, like how they do midwives or whatever, made it feel a lot more systemic, like a lot more like, this is the way it needs to go, and then if it doesn't go this way, we have a plan for that, and But it seemed all medical. Like it didn't seem like life was being brought into this world. Like it wasn't that kind of experience. Yeah. And if you don't have somebody, like especially for a first time mom, if you don't have somebody that shows you like that's what birth is about, or if you don't have that community around you to really support your how special that is and teach you, like, as a woman, like, okay, yeah, we come into our natural birthright of being able to create life inside of us and then give birth, right? But, like, nobody really teaches you how sacred that act is, right? Nobody really brings out, like, how only a woman's body can do these things, and then how that is yours to own, and how that is yours to have and to keep forever. Like nobody should be able to take that away from you. Yeah. But when you don't have people that are giving you that opportunity in the first place, it kind of makes you feel like it's just a job. Like for example, if you were doing a job that you do because you need to make money and you need to pay your bills, or as opposed to doing something that you love to do and maybe you don't make as much money but your bills still get paid, but you really enjoy doing it, so it feels like you're not working. It's the same thing with giving birth. Like, when you go through, like, the medical view of it, and like a physician is like, this is the way it must be done. If it doesn't go this way, they cut it out of you, and da-da-da-da. Whereas, like, when you have a different look at it from somebody who is more considering the mother and the act of giving birth, than teaching you how birth can be gone about in so many different ways. Like, you can do a water birth, you can do a home birth, you can do hospital birth, sure, no problem. You can do water birth in the hospital, like, you know, like things like that. Like, people they don't tell you that kind of stuff, and they don't show you that kind of stuff unless you're educated already on it. Yeah. So I feel like when you go through these doctor's appointments, they're just trying to keep it as rigid and systemic as possible, so that there's no, like, extra work having to be done on their part, and then, like, they control how the babies are born. Yeah. And I feel like when you do that to a new life, basically you're setting that tone for that person's life, right? That external controls are at play, and you don't have those choices. And I don't know, maybe that's just my personal, like, thought process of how, like, energy is passed on from people to person. But I feel like it'd be way more beneficial for there to be somebody that teaches you about all of your sacred, like, birthrights as a woman, as a person that can give birth, right? Yeah. So I think that, it definitely shapes how you go about it on the day, like, you're having your baby and stuff like that. To getting an epidural, what are your other options? Like, that kind of stuff, right?
So what did you already know about birth going into your first pregnancy versus what you knew going into your second pregnancy?
With my first pregnancy, I knew that, like, I was scared. Yeah. I knew that my body would change. I was terrified of all of the things that, like, could happen, like, and they're gonna cut me open. Like, but I don't mean, like, C-section. I was worried about, like, getting my vagina chopped open.
Like an episiotomy. Like,
right? Yeah. And I was just like, oh, snap. And I honestly worried about that so much more. Because, you know, you hear the horror stories before you hear the beautiful stories, right? Yeah. So, like, for example, I know our mom, when she had me, because I was a big baby, she hemorrhaged. So I think about things like that. And then I thought about things like, back in the day before they had a lot of technology, how mothers died in birth and stuff like that. And so you get all these big fears that are coming through you as, like, how is my experience going to be? And am I actually capable of doing the pushing? Like, I'm sure once I get to that point and it's hurting that much, I'm going to give up. I'm going to say, no, forget it. Like, you better just cut me open, right? And so I thought for sure, like, I wasn't up for the challenge. Yeah. And I felt that there was no real discussion around it leading up to it. So because of that, I really did not feel up to the challenge when I got there. I, like, on the morning or the night before, I went to the hospital. When I started having the contractions, I knew that, well, what I was told is, like, okay, when the contractions get this far apart, you should go to the hospital, whatever. And I knew what they were supposed to feel like, or whatever. I was told that they would feel like. And so I was like,
like the lips, nose, forehead thing? Like that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No. You're like, I'm what are you talking
about? No, I just mean, like, in terms of, like, okay, a contraction means your belly's going like this. Because I used to get with John, I used to get Braxton Hicks all the time at the end, because he was so, like, he moved so much.
What I do? Oh. Okay. My computer just froze.
And when we returned from commercial. Sorry. So, yeah, with John, I was like, I knew, like, okay, this is what contractions are like. I had Braxton Hicks, so I was aware. And then when they started happening so much more regularly, but I wasn't in, like, this crazy pain. I was just in, like, okay, I realized that they're this close together. So I didn't think about, you know, maybe how dilated I was or anything like that, because I think I was like 2 centimeters or something like that.
The night before?
No, like 2 weeks before. Like, I had been for a while, so I was like, oh my god, me too. I'm like, this is it. Like, for sure, I'm having a baby now. Yeah. And it was literally like then the 9th, and I was due on the 11th. So I was like, for sure. And I went in on the 10th. And then so I just kind of went in there thinking, like, I think I'm feeling what I'm supposed to feel. And then it was really at that point up to when I got there, it was up to the people, the nurses, the doctors there, whatever, that decided, okay, is she going to stay or is she going to go?
Yeah.
There was no information around, all right, well, you're this far along, like centimeters-wise. You can go home, or we prefer that you stay here. It was kind of like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. And they told me that they were going to break my water, and I was like, okay, sure, like, that's how it's supposed to go, right? Like, I didn't know that I could have been like, I just want to progress. Like, I just want it to happen, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel that when my water was broken is when my labor kind of, like, went to a standstill.
Yeah.
Because I think I got there and they said I was, like, 3 centimeters. They're like, so you can stay. Okay, fine. So I'm having the contractions, whatever. I'm in pain, whatever. I'm feeling it. And then I get to, like, 5 centimeters. So when I first got in there, 3 centimeters, they broke my water. I got to 5 centimeters. I was like, yeah, I need the epidural now. So they gave me epidural. And then I sat at 5 centimeters for so long. Mm-hmm. And then I think eventually my body started to progress a little bit. And I could feel those transactions there. Those contractions were so much more heavy than the ones I had with my daughter. They were so much more intense because I could feel my whole body.
Did you get the Pitocin? I can't remember if you did.
I got. I don't know. I don't really know. That's another thing. Like, I have no idea what happened. Like, I really don't.
Yeah. It's all like a blur.
I know. Like, I got the epidural. I don't know. I had an IV for sure. I had an IV. Maybe they gave me.
Was that for the Group B strep? No, you didn't test positive. So I think you did have Pitocin. I can't remember.
What happened is they broke my water and they said, like, that would start contractions.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, and obviously I know now, like, they don't have to break your water.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen all those babies born on call or whatever it's called. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what the hell? They tell you have to break your water, right? Mm-hmm. They make you feel like that's the only way you can be. So, whatever, I progressed until 8 centimeters, and I could feel those transactions. What are they called? Contractions. Sorry. I could feel them, and like it was like this intense. Like, my whole body was just like this wave of pain and heat. That's what it felt like, and I was just like so exhausted because regardless of whether or not you can feel a full contraction. Sorry, I was about to say transaction again. I was like, yeah. Okay,
well, we know what's on your mind. Money, transactions. I get it.
All about the money. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, so yeah, I could feel those, and my body was just so exhausted because I was still going through them. So I was just like done, and then I was at 8 centimeters for so long. And to think, obviously, you're 10 centimeters fully dilated. So that means he was pretty far down. And how uncomfortable that is. Yeah. And how uncomfortable it must have been for him, too. He was a bigger baby. He was 9'3". And then I think I passed the 12-hour mark from when they broke my water, which was 8:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, you risk infection. And the baby's been out of the water for too long, whatever. So they waited, and then I started to catch a fever. Mm-hmm. And then the baby's heart rate was going up, and they said, like, basically, you're starting to get an infection. I started to catch a fever, and they're like, baby's at risk, blah, 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 we have to go through C-section. And obviously, at that point, I was so devastated because I was like, I had this big idea in my head that I was going to just naturally give it. Because mom's smaller than I am, and she gave birth to all babies bigger than John, like, other than Shan. Like, Shan was smallest, but she just pushed us all out. So I was like, I'm built for this. This is in my DNA, right? Yeah. So I thought, like, I wouldn't have an issue pushing him out. And then when they told me all that, I was like, okay, well, obviously my number one concern is the baby's safety. So yeah, just do it, like, right away. Like, let's get it done. I'll deal with everything else after. Yeah. I worried about because I had prepped for only vaginal birth, right? In terms of what I packed and da-da-da. Luckily, you came through with all the essentials. But yeah, like, I really thought that it was kind of disastrous that it went this way, and I was really sad. And I remember just because when, again, Laura, my best friend, she had her first son. He was a C-section, and she didn't get to see him first. Like, she didn't see him until like an hour and a half after he was born, and all of us saw him before she did. And so that was playing in my mind. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm not even going to get to bond with him, right? Because I know the whole skin-to-skin thing. And at that point, they hadn't told me, like, no, he would stay with me and I would do that. And thank God they do that because I was like, that was everything to me.
I remember that was, like, a big concern. And
I was crying. I looked at their dad and I was just like, don't let anybody hold him.
Yeah.
Only you. Like, don't, like, just wait for me. Like, please.
Yeah.
And I was just like, because I don't want him to think that, like, he doesn't have his mom and his dad. Like, I was sitting there, I'm like, he's going to think he doesn't have his mom.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was really emotional, whatever, and I was crying, and I know, like, most people thought I was stupid about it, but, like, it's a serious thing. Anyways, so then he, when I was in the delivery room, are we at that point yet? Do you want?
No, keep going. Yeah, sorry.
when I was in the C-section room, whatever, they prepped me. I couldn't feel nothing. They gave me the full epidural, whatever, for my whole body. Luckily, I was still awake, but I was so out of it. I was like, ugh. I was really dizzy, and like everything was kind of a blur, and I felt like the whole table was just rocking and shaking. I was like, oh my God, they're like taking everything that's inside out of me. I was like, holy shit. And then I knew that they were taking him or whatever. They were telling me like, this is what's happening now, blah blah blah. And then for a second I was kind of just like waiting because all you have is this blue curtain in front of you and waiting. And then finally heard this cry and I was like, oh my God, thank goodness. But like I couldn't even appreciate that cry because I was so, like, my body was so traumatized. So I was exhausted from the 18 hours of labor that did not progress, and I had a fever, and later on I found out that my placenta was infected.
Yep.
And then on top of that, I have all these drugs in my system, and so I'm out of it, and I'm hearing him crying. I'm like, oh my God, thank goodness. But like my body's finally like slowly starting to relax, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling like crap. And then they wrap him up and they bring him, and his dad's holding him. They're like, oh look, here's your baby. And I'm like, hey, here. I try to give him a kiss, and I'm like, get him out of my way, get him out of the way, I'm gonna throw up on him. And like literally, like I had to tell them to take the baby away. Something I never ever wanted to happen.
Sorry, my cat's just being a little crazy right now.
Something I never ever wanted to happen. Like, obviously, like, why would I tell them to give my baby away, like, push him away from me? But I literally started throwing up out the sides of my mouth because I was so out of it. Like, my body was just traumatized. I was like, whew, it was way too much. And then so his dad gets the first bonding moment, and it's just like, looking at him, whatever. And my son, he was so calm. He was just staring. He was awake. He was alert. And I'm sitting there going, blah, blah. And I'm like so done. Like, I'm just so done. But luckily, and once they did all of that in the recovery room, like, he stayed with us the whole time. He was healthy. He stayed with us the whole time. So his dad was holding him. And then in the recovery room, they allowed us to do skin to skin. And I was just like, oh, like, everything was just finally over. And I was like, wow. This cat. I couldn't believe it. Like, at that point, you're a brand new mom, and this is not your second time, your first time ever being responsible for a life. And I'm just sitting there, I'm just like, wow. And like, he was just so perfect, and you just feel them sitting on you, and you're like, their head's so soft and fits exactly right in between your little boobs there, and just and then obviously they want you to do the feeding right away, so. Latching was, I think, like, I know they have those, like, breastfeeding classes, and I didn't feel it helped me at all. I probably would have done way better going back to one, but in my condition, I was like, I'm going nowhere.
Yeah.
I was in so much pain for exactly 2 weeks after that C-section. I think it had to do with, obviously, first, I was in labor for that long. My body was already feeling it. Second, I had the infection. And then third, the fact that it was an emergency C-section and it was like fast and done quickly. It wasn't like slow process. I feel that I maybe had some nerve damage because like on my scar, I still feel like I can't really feel it. Like, it feels kind of tingly. But I feel like I had some nerve damage or something, and it needed some time for the nerve endings to die or something like that. That's my assumption. Because, like, the pain I felt, oh, my God, the pain I felt for those 2 weeks after I had him, it just made it so much more miserable. Because, like, healing is hard enough, but being in pain, like, if I literally felt like I was being electrocuted every time I moved. I'd have this like sharp, burning, lightning sensation. Like that's the only thing I can explain as like lightning hitting you, for example. Not that I know what that feels like. I can imagine, right?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like, and it was like that for exactly 14 days. And then after that, it was like, I'm fine. And it was so weird, but it made, the cuddling and all that stuff a lot harder. But it also put me in a position to be those co-sleeping moms. I still co-sleep with my kids.
Yeah.
Like for the most part, I try and have them do their. And like every once in a while, they kind of just come back to me. Like there was one point in time where everybody's sleeping in their own bed. Yeah, they'd come to me in the middle of the night, but I put them back in their bed, no problem, good. And now it's like they both won't go to sleep without me in their bed. So we're all sleeping. We have 3 beds in the room, and we're all sleeping on one bed. Yeah. And it's just because like they just need that, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm not gonna feel guilty about co-sleeping with my kids. But I used to co-sleep with him because it was so much easier to just have him already on my chest when he woke up. That and for the first like week it was on my chest that he was co-sleeping, and then afterwards it was on the bed with me. But it was so much easier because I couldn't move without being in this crazy pain. Like I had him in the bassinet the first night, and I was like, I can't do this. Because, like, getting him and doing the twisting motion of, it was terrible with those stitches. So,
I can imagine.
Yeah, definitely co-sleeping all the way. I don't care what nobody says.
So, comparing Johnny's birth now and going into the last trimester with Rose and getting really close to the birth with her, how did you feel about like labor with her? How did you feel about that whole process?
With Rose, because they were so close, they were 17 months apart. The same obstetrician, Dr. Ha, said that the best choice would be to do another C-section. And I was like, because I read up on VBACs and I was like, I could do it, yeah. And then she told me like I do run a risk of hemorrhaging, scarred, or whatever. I don't know the freaking terminology.
Scar, like
opening
popping,
back up type thing. And that could pose a bigger risk. And again, that's how like people die during birth and da. So I was like, obviously I don't want to leave both of my kids, so let me go down the road that is better practice. And then she had told me like the most she'd done on somebody I think was 8 or something like that. And I was like, holy shit.
Which is, if you're obstetrician, it's a bias of mine, but if your obstetrician tells you that she's done 8 C-sections on one woman, that is not a responsible doctor. I'm just going to put that out there. I could touch on that in another episode, but oh my gosh.
I don't know what she's talking about. But anyway, so I was like, okay, fine. C-section, I know how that works, and we'll just go that route. So I had a planned C-section scheduled. Had to choose the date of my daughter's birth, which I wasn't so excited about because me personally, like I had the option of putting her on the leap year date, like February 29th, and I was like, yo, that's the coolest birthday ever. And then everybody, and I read online, and people are complaining about how having a birthday sucks, and I was like, what? I would be so excited about having a birthday that is like only comes every 4 years. And then everybody was telling me, like, no, don't do that. So I was like, oh, okay, fine. I guess I won't. Like, I don't want her to be mad at me down the line and being like, how could you choose that birthday for me, Mom? So I was like, okay, fine, whatever. Because I kind of like the idea of the February month and not March month, but whatever.
Yeah.
Why would the March month had to be, I guess, like, I think it was only a week earlier than the due date because I had gone to my due date last time, so she didn't have to make it too much earlier. Anyway, so then I planned for that. It's supposed to be March 3rd. Then that pregnancy was a lot, she was a lot smaller. She was 7'6". Pregnancy was a lot more stressful on me because I had, my toddler. I was working. Was I working? Yeah, I was working. Because I went back to work when my son was 6 months because I didn't have... Like, I couldn't afford to stay home and just make only the money off mat leave. So, that was difficult. I cut breastfeeding short and whatnot. I was working. We were in between houses. So it was really stressful. And with her, the nesting period was a lot more intense. I was like, And the day that my water broke, so I'll get there.
Oh my gosh.
So what happened, it was scheduled for March 3rd, and then on March 1st, my water broke at home. And I was like, oh snap, I know I'm supposed to go to the Scarborough Hospital because I was in the West End. I was supposed to go to Scarborough Hospital, and that's where I'm supposed to have my C-section.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Touching on the VBAC, because I want to emphasize the fact that this is a VBAC. Like, a VBAC is a vaginal birth after a C-section. And you wanted this. You wanted a VBAC, like, really, really bad. I remember how passionately you spoke about it. And then, it would go back to, like, but I don't know. I don't want to put myself and my baby at risk. And it was, like, a constant, like, battle between, like, C-section, VBAC. Which one's better? One person's telling me that the VBAC, a.k.a. me, I'm telling you go VBAC. And your obstetrician, who actually has a license, medical license, is telling you C-section.
Yeah.
And I feel like we were kind of like the devil and the angel, like, on your shoulder or whatever.
Yeah, and then I took the Instagram and went through all those communities and was, like, reading on all the online kind of posts and whatever that people comment on just to see where people were at. And there were stories that went both ways. And so it was really difficult to make a good decision. But ultimately, I went with what the person who's supposed to be in charge of my birth to make the right choices, right? So I was like, okay, let me go with that because I feel more confident that that's what they feel more confident in.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be delivering the baby, right? So then, basically, I fast forward, it was March 1st. I was supposed to be scheduled for C-section March 3rd, and it was a morning one too. And so the plan was, okay, I guess I'm going to Scarborough Hospital tonight, and they'll just do my C-section tonight. Because I prepared for C-section. I was like, I can't have another one because she said it's too soon. Blah, blah, blah. It was also a snowstorm. So what had happened at home is that morning I fought with my baby father. I was so upset. He was like telling me I'm overreacting, that I need to change around the whole room, and I was like, you don't understand. And I started bawling, and I cried the hardest and I ever did my whole pregnancy. I was like, you don't get it. And I really lost it that morning. And I was like, for some reason, I had this need to get the room exactly ready for the way I pictured it. And I'm telling you, I was 9 months pregnant, days away from my C-section, and I'm lifting like beds and putting them all across the room and rearranging dressers and Like, it was so significant that I had the room set up for when she was supposed to be home because so close was the day she was supposed to have her.
Yeah.
And then that evening, it's 10:45, I remember exactly. I was laying down on the couch, I'm tired, I'm like, whatever, my big belly's there. So later on in the pregnancy, laying on one side really makes your hips sore. So then I went to go turn to the other side to give that hip a rest. And then as I turned, I just felt bloop, and I just felt this kind of like, not a pop, but like a release. And I was like, oh my God. And I felt a little bit of like water, whatever. And I was like, whoa. And so I'm like, wait a minute. So I stood up and then just the gush came and I was like, and I'm looking and then everybody's looking at me like, what's wrong with me? I'm like, yo, my water just broke. I think my water just broke. And then my sister-in-law starts running around. She's like, oh my God, your baby's coming. And she's like freaking out. And I'm just sitting there and I'm so calm. I was just like, oh, snap. I'm like, and every move I made, it was more gush. And I was like, I'm like, I can't even get to the bathroom because the bathroom's all the way upstairs. I'm like, okay, well, I need somebody to help me so I don't slip, right? So I'm just sitting there. And then everybody's running around wild around me. And I'm just like, whatever. And then on that day, happened to be, and mind you, yes, it's March, it happened to be some crazy-ass snowstorm. And so the roads outside were ridiculous. And so to get from West End to Scarborough in the snowstorm was not going to happen. And I was like, oh, snap. So what do I do now? And so I'm all confused. I'm like, but I can't have it anywhere else. Like, I'm supposed to have a C-section there. Yeah. And so I was kind of like rigid around that. I was like, I don't know what else to do. And then so what happened is we ended up calling the ambulance because they could transport a lot more safe. And so we did that. The roads were dead, but it was very slippery, very out there, very windy, very snowy, whatever. Getting down the driveway alone was difficult. And then, so I just calmly waited for them. They came, they took me, and then they decided that they were going to go to St. Joe's, which to me is way farther than Humber River, which was like Keel and Lawrence, and we're at Keel and Eglinton. Or Keel and Wilson, we're at Keel and Eglinton. So I was like, I felt kind of weird. I'm like, okay, I guess we're going farther. So I was kind of a little bit panicky. Like, what if I have the baby in the ambulance, thinking like, oh my God, because I've never had a water break on me before. So whatever. Went to the hospital, and I was feeling fine. Like, the contractions didn't even start yet after the water broke. I was feeling fine. I went in there, and then the nurse, the doctor, and the doctor's student, they were so nice at the hospital. And that hospital, like, is an older-looking hospital, so you'd think, like, because it's not all new and uppity.
Oh, no, that hospital is amazing.
Yeah, like, that they are going to be kind of, like, not good at their job for some reason. But they were so nice. And the lady, she came to me, she was like, she checked me out. She was like, all right, everything's good. She's like, I'd let her know, like, my plan was that I was supposed to have a C-section at this time. And then I'm like, so she's like, well, you can have the C-section if that's what you really want, but, like, you can try and push if you want to. And I was like, really?
Like, a healthcare provider is telling me I can do this?
I was sitting there, I was just like, so I can? Like, and I was just like, obviously the fear kicked in. I'm like, but what if? Yeah. And so I was kind of sitting there like, should I? I'm like, but I'm not prepared for this. I didn't do this last time. I don't know how to do it this way. Like, I only know how to do it the other way. I'm like, all the things I bought are not for that. They are for the C-section. So I'm like, I really don't know, like, what choice. And then she left it up to me. And then at the end of it, I was just like, if they're confident, like, honestly, their confidence really makes all the difference. Because, like, if they're confident that I can try, then, like, why wouldn't I? Yeah. And so at that point, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah. And the thing with them is that they didn't rush me to, my water had already broken. They did not rush me to take the epidural. Like, I was like, for sure I want the epidural. Maybe in a little bit, like, at, like, 5 centimeters or so, because that's what I did with my son. But I was also worried that taking that epidural at that time was going to slow down the delivery, right? So I was kind of like, I don't know. And then, so what they did, and I feel this is what they did, they didn't really communicate with me how many centimeters I was at when they gave me the epidural. But they made me wait a long time for it. Yeah. And, like, I was feeling the contractions, and they weren't too bad. Like, they were bearable. But at some point, like, it gets exhausting on your body, right? Yeah. And you can't tolerate the pain as much. And so I waited in one room for a long time. Then finally they got me into my private room. And then I was in there for a while, still getting the contractions. And then finally they gave me the epidural. And then so I think by the time I got to the hospital that night, it was like 11 or so, 11:30, 11:45. And then I had her the next morning, which was at 11:21. And I pushed, and it was like less than 10 minutes pushing. Like, it was so exhilarating. And the nurses I had, a doctor didn't even deliver my baby. Yeah. The doctors weren't even there yet. The nurses were like, yeah, you're ready. I had this one Filipino nurse. She knew what she was doing. She, like, massages the opening, and then to the point where I didn't need no stitches. Your nurses were amazing. Stitches. Yeah. I didn't need, like, I didn't tear inside. Nothing. Yeah. It was, like, amazing. I just pushed her out, and she came out. She came on top of my stomach, and I was like, oh my God, this is really happening. I didn't feel no pain. When I woke up the next day, I was like, yeah. I'm, like, walking around, and I'm like, ooh, like, I can move. Like, I was so, like, elevated because like I could function, and that really played a big role in how I felt afterwards about the newborn phase, because there was a lot of stress around how hard it was going to be with a toddler, C-section scars and stitches, and a newborn, and I was kind of like really overwhelmed about that. Yeah. And then when I was up and walking around in my hospital room the next morning, I was like, what? Like, yo, vaginal birth is so easy. I'm like, who wouldn't want to do it this way? I was like, wow, I'll never have a C-section again. Yeah. And then it really put into perspective for me how significant, like, obviously, if you require a C-section and you have to do it, there's no other choice. You got to do it. It's what's best for your baby. But, like, if you don't have to go that route right away, like, if you can do the whole vaginal birth thing, like, try that out. Like, yes, some people have a hard time. Like, even our sister-in-law, Jen.
Yeah.
Like, she had a hard time with vaginal birth. She got the episiotomy, all that stuff, and she had a hard time with her healing.
Yeah.
And sure, that happens for some people. But, like, for me, I was like, this is the most... And also having those nurses that really knew what they were doing and were focused on the delivery of the baby in a healthy way. They weren't like, what's fast, what's this, what's that. They were really like, okay, we're going to do this. And the doctor came in to deliver my placenta. My baby was out already getting cleaned up when the doctor walked in. So it was a huge, like, life-changing experience in terms of, like, if I was to have more babies down the road, I would be all about preparing myself for a vaginal birth. Like, I would not be sitting there waiting until the day of and then coming and figuring out whether or not I'm having vaginal. I'd be like, yo, vaginal all the way and prepare your body for it. You know, the Kegels or whatever. And I don't know what else you can do, but if I ever have another one, I'm for sure going to be making sure I pay more attention to it because it was such a difference. So important.
Even in, like, your demeanor, like, as, like, someone that attended both births and, like, was with you afterwards and during, like, all the recovery and stuff, like, just seeing you and your confidence and your power in birthing Rosie, because I know how doubtful you were of yourself, and, like, actually, like, being able to witness you birthing her was one of the most amazing things I've ever witnessed in my life. It still sticks in my memory. Of course I remember Johnny's birth and I remember Isaac's birth, but Rose's birth was, like, it was powerful because it was a game changer for you. It was life changing. This cat is insane.
No, it was so like I couldn't believe myself. Like, the fear they had instilled in me that if I was to go vaginal, I'd have such a high risk of hurting myself and risking the baby and in terms of my scar already and I was really fearful of that. And none of that stuff mattered. Like, I didn't feel any way in my scar. Like, there was no, like, oh my gosh, it was so easy. Like, it was a shorter labor. It was a very short pushing period. Like, I pushed for less than 10 minutes. Honestly, me personally, I remember pushing like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and
I don't remember doing more than that, so I don't feel like that would take a whole 10 minutes. But for me, that was about the time frame. And, like, I hear people about pushing for 2 hours. I'm like, how do you do that? But even for me, like, when I was pushing, I'm sitting there like, am I doing it right? Like, I don't even know if I'm actually getting her out. Yeah. But your body just does it. Like, you have it in your mind, like, okay, time to push. And they tell you how to hold your breath and and what to feel when you're pushing. And, it just happens. Like, I feel, yes, I had the epidural, but I did not feel those pushes. I did not, like, it was not difficult. I was so happy. I was so proud of myself. And I think a big part of it, too, was the nurses knowing what to do to my reproductive parts to make sure that they supported that baby coming. And obviously she was smaller than my son, which is a big deal too.
Yeah.
But it was a perfect experience. I was so elated after that. I was like, wow, like, super woman, like, yeah, I did that. So,
do you think that if you went to Scarborough Hospital, you would have had the same experience?
Oh, not at all. That was already scheduled. They would have just, like, for sure done went and gone C-section.
Yeah.
Which is why I believe everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Because, like, I definitely feel they would have just been like, okay, well, you're applying for C-section, let's do a C-section.
Yeah, that snowstorm was, like,
yeah, everything,
game changer.
Man. Everything. And she was like, excuse me, I don't know what you're trying to do. Cut me out. Like, I'm ready to come right now.
Yeah.
And she came, because basically she was born March 2nd, and the C-section was supposed to be March 3rd, so... She was like, hell no. And, like, it was a week before my due date. She was due on March 10th, I believe. And she came March 2nd. So, like, it was a week before my due date, too. Whereas my son, he went, and if I didn't do the whole going in before I was even ready and stuff like that and get my water broken, he would have been born on his due date. So, it was very different experiences.
Yeah. So, what was it like holding Johnny for the first time?
Relief. There was a lot of fears around his birth that I was really worried about. It was really sad too because he had to have the little block on his hand where he had the IV in his hand the whole time. So I was like really sad about that. I was like, oh my god, my poor baby. But my son, he's just, there's something about his heart, something about his soul that's just connected to mine. He's very attached and he's been that way for a long time. I'm sure I made him that way too, how attached I was to him when he came out. But like, he was he gave me a different reason for continuing on, right? So like, I knew, like, the whole time I was pregnant with him, I felt that way. But, like, when he came out, I was just like, oh, my goodness. Like, there's nothing I wouldn't do for you. Like, you know what I mean? And it just naturally comes out of you. Like, it doesn't take time to settle in or nothing like that. Like, immediately they come out and they're yours to deal with. Like, you must deal with it.
Yeah.
And, like, I was so ready. I was so, like, anything and everything. Like, I couldn't. I don't know, it's just such a nice feeling when you have their little warm body now on your chest instead of in your tummy.
Stop, you're making me tired. Okay, so let's get to... How many kids do you think that you'll end up having? Like, do you want more?
Well, I've always wanted a lot of kids. Like, I always wanted, like, I love
You're about to say 1 billion kids.
I love those, like, family photos where they have, like, 7 kids and they all look the same but so different.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god. They're like, which one was born first? And then you're just comparing all of them and they're so cute, little boys, little girls. Like, I love that. But honestly, in today's society, it's hard to raise a lot of kids. Especially if, you know, parenting is one-sided and stuff like that. So, which it can be sometimes for some people. It's hard to do, like, have the concept of, like, growing your family when you're not really situated in a way to support that in the best way. Because the way I see it is, like, I don't want to take away from my kids where they're at now by having another baby and then possibly, like, making it more difficult for them where they're at. So, would I love to have more kids? Yes. I need an odd number. Like, I would love to, if I can't have...
An odd number?
Yeah.
That makes me uncomfortable.
It's weird because that's the only thing that I can deal with at an odd number.
So, like, 3, 5, 7...
Yeah, like, that's what I want for kids. Like, I feel like being too symmetrical is kind of, like, takes away from their individuality.
That makes me, just hearing you say that makes me so uncomfortable.
But, like, for me, like, I can't have the volume at 23. Like, it's either 24 or 22.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that kind of thing. Like, the frequency of sound on an even number is different than I swear by it.
No, I swear, you're right.
But, like, and even, like, how I write when I put exclamation marks, or it needs to be 2 or 4.
Yeah.
There's no, like, 1 or 3 or anything like that. It needs to be... Yeah, but anyways, so, when you do the ... I do ... because you can't just do ... so it has to be 4, like, you know what I mean? Anyways, so, but with kids, it's like I always wanted an odd number amount of kids, because I feel like the off balance makes your family so much more unique. And less symmetrical. Like, they're individuals coming into a group needs to be unlevel.
So it's not like a cookie cutter family. Like, it's like everyone is different. Everyone's their own individual. And you can see that more because there's not, like, an even number.
Yeah.
There's not 2 boys and 2 girls.
Yeah. Like, you're comparing those 2 and those 2. Or, you know what I mean? Like, even if it was okay, even if it wasn't even number, it couldn't be 2 and 2. Or it couldn't be 3 and 3.
It'd have to be, like, 3 boys, 1 girl.
Yeah. Like,
3 girls, 1 boy kind of thing. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, it needs to be some kind of offset. Like, there needs to be a skew.
You're weird.
But anyways,
I don't like it.
But, no, I would love to have more kids. It's just financially and, like, in society, I don't know. Sometimes I sit there and I'm like, did I do my kids a disservice by bringing them into this world? How nasty this world is? It just makes you think, like, it's kind of fearful. Like, I always worry about, like, and I know I always think about it, but I never actually, like, turn to do it, like making just my own written will or something like that, writing something down about what I want for my kids if I'm gone, because that's my biggest fear in life right now, is leaving them. Like, I'm so terrified that, like, something terrible happens, and it happens all the time. And I'm like, I pray that my soul gets to stay with them. Like, I don't care if it was like heaven or damned to earth for the rest of your life. Like, I will stay with them. There's no way I would leave. Like, I would be so crushed to know. Like, when I see how my son feels when he sees me after it's been a long time, or when I'm on nights and I've been working a lot of evenings and he's been at school all day, so we haven't seen each other for like 4 days. Yeah. When I see him do that, like how he acts, like he'll call me and he's just like, his voice is quivering, like he's just like, where are you? Like, da da da. And I'm just like so crushed by it because he has this attachment to me. Like, Rose is just like, hey mom, whatever. Yeah. And like, she gets attention from everybody, but he can get attention from everybody, but there's nothing like his mom. There's nothing like that bond that me and him have, that relationship. Like, today he swore that he didn't have his lunch in his bag, and he was really overwhelmed by it at school, and he was crying, they said. He's like, oh, he doesn't have his lunch. I'm like, no, it's in his bag. It's in a white plastic bag. I don't know for sure. And then they asked him, and he was like, no, it's not there. And he was really worked up over it, like he had done something wrong, or he forgot or something. And he was really like panicked about it. And I was like, don't worry, I'm going to be there. I'm going to check. If he doesn't have it, then I'm going to take him for lunch. I got there. And as he walked to the office and he saw me, he's like, like he started to like shake with happiness and sadness at the same time. Like he started to quiver, and like he was just so like, but that's his attachment to me. Like I don't care if people are like, oh, he's too soft or this and I'm like, yo, that's my baby. Like he doesn't know the difference in life he gave me. Like, you know what I mean? Like Rose too. That's my angel, that's my princess, that's my sweet little baby girl. She got an attitude for days. For days. And mine and her relationship is a lot different. Whereas, like, I feel it's really important that she has a solid relationship with her dad. That's why I would never say nothing negative to her about her dad or envy their relationship or anything, because that relationship is so significant to me that she has a man in her life that's a positive thing to her. Yeah. And then I want my son to know how a good relationship with a woman goes. Like, he needs to know that you must respect women. Like, there's no... Like, if you... Guys that don't have a good relationship with their mom... It's...
I heard that.
Yeah, like, it is a mess. Like, they are messes. And it's been repeated and proven time after time after time. I see it in my work. I've seen it in my relationships. I've seen it in other people's relationships. I've seen it in family. Like, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, nobody can tell me nothing about my son. Just say. And you want to tell anything about my daughter? Say that to her dad and see what happens.
Ooh. I hear you.
No names on shit here.
You're so stupid.
You might want to cut that out.
Edit. Okay. So, in conclusion,
yes, wrap it up.
I would like you.
Nana's house.
I would like you to send yourself off with a piece of advice, something that you would have said to yourself going into your pregnancies and your labors if you had the same experience that you have now.
Do your research. It is your body. It is your choice. Consent is not only about sexual relationships or intimacy. Consent is about anything that has to do with you, your physical, your emotional, your spiritual body. What is yours, and you have control over it. Do you sometimes need expert opinion? Yes. But do your research about the expert opinions you're getting. We ask for second opinions over whether or not you got stage 4 cancer, You can have second opinions about whether or not you deliver vaginally, C-section, what you need to do in birth, blah, blah, blah. There's things out there. Like, there's people, there's communities, there are services and stuff like that out there that will actually teach you about that stuff along the way, instead of you guessing and just hoping that people who are so-called licensed to deliver babies know everything. So, money makes the world go round. Just know that. And people will cut you open for an extra 10 grand faster than they'll make sure that you're fine. Because once they cut you open, they don't care if you're in pain afterwards. So, and you can't walk around with your baby and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, do your research. Consent. 'Tis your body. That is my advice.
Amazing! Thank you, Brittany. I wish I knew how to like put like one of those like applause tracks like on there. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Fam.
Hey!
Besides Scarborough King.
You're so stupid. Oh, first podcast done. I finally put it out a year later than when I said I was going to. Hey man, shit happens.
All in good time. All in good time.
Exactly. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and please look out for the next 5 or 4, I'm not really sure how it's gonna go, podcast. This is the birth stories of my homies. All right.
Peace out.
Peace.